Okay, so obviously now we've done our inspection in the car. We've gone around the outside. We've taken our measurements. We've gone to the car. We've printed up an inspection report, and now the objective is to get to the table with our homeowner. And today we have a single dad who just recently bought a house, and so now we understand our homeowner. Obviously, if it's a husband and wife, we're going to get both of them to the table. In this scenario, we have one homeowner, so we're going to just meet with him today. Now, keep in mind, I've got all my tools with me. I've got my pitch book. I've got my iPad so that we can show the report. We can use our animations. I have a copy of their inspection report that we're going to review with him. And I also have my clipboard, which contains my drawing pad. It's a crawl space, so I have my crawl space drawing pad just to make it a little bit more relatable so that he can really kind of wire things together and connect the dots. If I'm using a basement, I'm really forcing him to use his imagination to change what a basement might look like versus a crawl space. So we have a crawl space drawing pad so that we can really make things a lot more relatable for him in this scenario. Okay? Keep in mind, the whole purpose of this now is I have a homeowner, Justin, who did not go in the crawl space with me. He might look mean and tough, but he's scared and he doesn't like to go in the crawl space. So, it is what it is. So I've taken some extra pictures in the crawl space and I'm going to bring those up to present those to the homeowner. I'm going to ask a handful of questions to my homeowner. You have to remember, it doesn't really matter what the questions are that we're asking. The whole objective is we're trying to build some curiosity and that need to know, because if I just roll into explaining everything I saw without kind of getting him engaged, he's just kind of waiting for a solution and what this is going to cost. I want him to be engaged through my presentation. And the best way to do that is to get him curious. We use activities in the crawl space and the questions we ask in the crawl space to build that curiosity. So now I'm going to do that at the table with the pictures that I present him. Okay? Okay, Justin, so I understand you didn't get in the crawl space with me. So what I did is I actually took some pictures of what's going on in the crawl space, some things that I noticed going on downstairs, and I wanted to ask you a few questions based on what I saw.
Okay.
Okay. So the first thing I noticed downstairs in the crawl space is we have these crawl space vents, and as you can see here, it's wide open. How often do you close those? Do you go around and close those?
No, I don't think I've ever closed those, really. I just moved in, so I've never closed those.
Okay. Let me ask you, in the wintertime, do you notice your floors getting a lot colder?
I you know, I don't really have another winter to compare it to, but they are pretty chilly, and there's some spots it seems like there's like it's coming apart. It seems like.
Okay. The wood's starting to kind of separate a little bit?
A little bit.
Okay. Do you notice it more around where those vents are, in that back bedroom, kind of those two rooms on the front side of the house?
Now that you mention it, I think that is where I noticed that those spots are.
Okay. If we look at this picture here, I notice there's an old vapor barrier down, right? But if we scroll over, on the other half of the house, now this is those bedrooms on the back side of the house behind the kitchen here.
Okay.
Which I think looks like maybe your living room also.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed that there's a new vapor barrier that's been taped down. Did you have that done?
That was like that when I moved in. And really, I've only been down there a couple of times. But yeah, that was like that when I moved in.
So I'm really curious why they put a new vapor barrier on this side of the house, but on this side of the house they left it. Did the home inspector tell them to do that? Is that why they did it?
I don't really know. I wasn't able to be here for the inspection either, but I don't know. What are those holes in the?
Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, you bring up a good point. You see these holes that run all the way across the wall here. Matter of fact, if you look over in some of these other pictures, they,
Okay.
they run kind of all the way across the foundation.
Mm-hmm.
Typically, what these holes are is, a pest control company will
Okay.
drill those holes to pour liquid in there for a termite bond.
Okay.
Do you have a current termite bond on the house?
We do, or I do have one. But I haven't seen the guy. I mean,
Was
but
it part of the inspection, or
yeah.
did
It was part of
did
the
it
purchase.
transfer?
It did transfer over, but so I know we have one. It's part of the contract, but I haven't seen anybody come.
What's really interesting, if we look at this picture especially, these holes, you can see a lot of this white powder
Okay.
and this discoloration around those holes,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that white powder, that's what we call efflorescence, right? And that's kind of a reaction when concrete gets wet.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really curious if we've seen water flowing out of these holes. Did the home inspector talk about moisture coming out of these holes ever when he was looking at it?
He didn't mention anything to me about any moisture, but it looks new. Is that new or?
Well, based on what I'm seeing, I can't really tell if
Oh.
it's new or old, but this is up along the garage wall, right?
Okay.
And this certainly shows evidence of that discoloration, that damp concrete that we were talking about. Have you ever done anything on the outside of the house, any regrading over there, or try to rerun downspouts up by the garage
No,
in that corner?
I haven't started really doing anything to the outside of the house yet, really.
Okay, all right. Well, that could explain why we're seeing some of
Okay.
that flowing down the wall
Okay.
in that area. I can't help but notice, if you kind of gaze up here, the ductwork that's
Yeah.
running at the top of the picture looks like we might have had a little critter or somebody chewing on that insulation.
Yes. See that? It's like a paw print.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Maybe a little vermin down there.
Yeah.
You're not getting any of those. Do you hear them downstairs in the crawl space?
I haven't really heard anything, and I haven't seen anything up here. But obviously, it looks like I'm definitely gonna have to either call somebody or keep an eye out at least.
Yeah, I'd keep my ear to the ground to see. I mean, you can see how close they are to the damp wall, and
Yeah.
it just makes you curious what they're chasing, because that is a little bit bigger paw print than just a mouse. So it makes you curious what they're down there chasing or eating on for sure.
Yeah.
I gotta ask you, do you or your son, when he's here, do you guys, either one of you, experience any kind of sinus infections or allergies, asthma, anything like that?
I don't, but I have noticed that when I have my son on the weekends, that he'll get some sniffles, which before we moved in, he never had sniffles.
Look, I'm not by any means an expert in that, but I owe it to you to point this out. What I'm seeing on the floor joist, and this is right here behind you in the kitchen on this back wall of the house.
Okay.
But what I'm seeing is that yellow powder looks like there's some bio growth.
Okay.
Has anybody else ever tried to clean that off?
No, I haven't been down there enough to really. I've never even seen that. So, no, I have not cleaned any of that off.
Did the inspector point it out when he was here?
He might have, but I wasn't here for that. And I can't remember reading that in the inspection. The agent took care of all of that, so
Okay.
I don't really know.
Yeah, obviously, if there was a lot of it, then they would have probably required some remediation or
For
something.
sure, for sure.
And that, do you recall if that was done?
No, we didn't have to do anything like that. So
Okay. Are you seeing any of that on the floor up here in the kitchen? Have you ever had to clean any of that? Any kind of haze on the flooring up here?
I think there might have been something up here along the wall, where the wall was, maybe. But I don't know.
Okay. Well, let's do this. The last thing I wanted to point out is I noticed it looks like somebody's had to do some repairs to the subfloor. I mean, this is our subfloor, and all of a sudden you see some replacement pieces in there. Was that done by you? Was it done by the previous homeowner? Do you
It
know?
must have been the previous homeowner. I haven't really started anything in terms of flooring. So But I remember the inspector said something about that, and he didn't really say anything was wrong with that. With that, he just pointed it out. Maybe something to keep an eye on.
Okay. All right. Now, typically a homeowner's doing that because we're starting to get soft, spongy, or squeaky floors. Have you noticed any soft or spongy or squeaky floors anywhere else in the house yet?
I mean, maybe just in. I guess that's like right above where we are. There is a little soft spot kind of around where that is.
Soft as in sagging?
No, it's just kind of. It's not really sagging. You just kind of. It's maybe spongy is the word I'm looking
Okay.
for.
Yeah. Well, the reason I ask if it's sagging is because actually, just a few feet away from that, I noticed this support post.
Okay.
And this metal support post goes straight into the ground, and if you look really close along the bottom, you can see that rust that's starting to build up on it. So I'm just wondering if this is starting to kind of sink into the ground a little bit here, causing some dipping in the floors.
Well, during the inspection, he didn't notice any significant foundation issues.
Okay.
So I don't know. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. So let's do this. I mean, that kind of gives you an idea of some of the things that I was looking at, some of the things I was seeing downstairs.
Sure.
What I really want to do is kind of start back from step one here.
Okay.
Okay. So if you don't mind, let me just break out what I'd like to do, and again, I've created an inspection report for you, okay? And as you can see, this is your house. We've taken some pictures of things going on downstairs that I really want to talk about with you. But before we do, I'd love to take an opportunity and just tell you a little bit about our company
Okay.
and who we are.
Sure.